So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having...
Yo. Yo. What up, old lobster? Alrighty then. How are we doing today? How we doing today? It was a nice day, like weather-wise, a couple days ago. Past couple of days have been rainy and cold and hail and garbage. But today I'm seeing sun, so I'm happy again. Just a quick review, see if there's any. Oh, let me give you some music, so I'm not just sitting here. All right, do I got to cover the Elon Tucker interview? Because I'm not liking the. I'm not liking the. The headlines, you know what I mean? See how long it is. All right. So, one thing I hate about this is the fact that the interview is released on Fox News anyway. It's only 9 minutes long. Now, regardless of my opinions on Elon Musk, if Fox News had the opportunity to sit down with him, you would think that they would have gotten more than 9 minutes out of that, right? Or even like 15 minutes edited down to 9, what have you. Feels like there might be additional content coming in the future. Or maybe they just thought this was the best 9 minutes. All right. It's only 9 minutes. We'll take a look at it. Here we go.
Is more dangerous than, say, mismanaged.
Oh, you got the full thing. That's what I wanted. 51 minutes. Jesus Christ. I hate Fox's new, this player that they have. This nonsense. This is intended for you to accidentally click on something else, right? Because you go to click on the thing and it go away.
So all of a sudden AI is everywhere. People who weren't quite sure what it
Check the levels.
was are playing with it on their phones. Is that good or bad?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about AI for a
Okay,
long
that'll
time,
work.
since I was in college, really. It was one of the things that, the sort of 4 or 5 things I thought would really affect the future
Thank you,
dramatically.
by the way.
It is fundamentally profound in that the smartest creatures, as far as we know, on this earth are humans, is our defining characteristic.
Yes.
We're obviously weaker than, say, chimpanzees and less agile, but we are smarter. So now what happens when something vastly smarter than the smartest person comes along in silicon form? It's very difficult to predict what will happen in that circumstance. It's called the singularity. It's a singularity like a black hole, because
Yes.
you don't know what happens after that. It's hard to predict. So I think we should be cautious with AI, and I think there should be some government oversight, because it affects it's a danger to the public. And so when you have things that are a danger to the public, like, let's say, so food and drugs. That's why we have the Food and Drug Administration,
Right.
and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FCC. We have these agencies to oversee things that affect the public, where there could be public harm, and you don't want companies cutting corners on safety, and then having people suffer as a result. So that's why I've actually for a long time been a strong advocate of AI regulation.
Who would have guessed the guy who gets most of his money for SpaceX from the government wants to get government money out for AI? Yeah, like Elon Musk is a government contractor.
So that I think regulation is, it's not fun to be regulated. It's somewhat arduous to be regulated. I have a lot of experience with regulated industries, because obviously automotive is highly regulated. You could fill this room with all the regulations that are required for a production car just in the United States, and then there's a whole different set of regulations in Europe and China.
Okay, I've already figured out why they edited this down to 9 minutes. Like, focus.
And the rest of the world. So, very familiar with being overseen by a lot of regulators. And the same thing is true with rockets. You can't just willy-nilly, shoot rockets off, not big ones anyway, because the FAA oversees that. And then even to get a launch license, there are probably half a dozen or more federal agencies that need to approve it, plus state agencies. So I've been through so many regulatory situations. It's
Dude, get to the point, man.
insane. And sometimes people think I'm some sort of like regulatory maverick that sort of defies regulators on a regular basis, but this is actually not the case. It's
the first time I've ever actually like empathized with that Tucker confused dog look, because my man is just
once in a blue moon, rarely I will disagree with regulators, but the vast majority of the time, my companies agree with the regulations and comply. Anyway, so I think we should take this seriously, and we should have a regulatory agency. I think it needs to.
I agree with this. This is the only way that we can get everyone to play on the same field in the United States. I also think that we should be working on international treaties, which is made difficult by people fucking waving their dicks around. Always imagine Tucker's trying to identify the flavor of his own mouth. Yeah.
To start with a group that initially seeks insight.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, bienvenue. Welcome in. What up, Alex?
into AI, then
Thank you for getting the reference. I appreciate it.
solicits opinion from industry, and then has proposed rulemaking, and then those rules, will probably, hopefully, grudgingly be accepted by the major players in AI, and I think we'll have a better chance of advanced AI being beneficial to humanity in that circumstance.
But all regulations start with a perceived danger. Planes fall out of the sky, or food causes botulism.
Yes.
I don't think the average person playing with AI on his iPhone perceives any danger. Can you just roughly explain what you think the dangers might be?
Yeah. So
Like, I'm very AI positive, but whenever this, let's call him person, gets involved, I get concerned, and then he opens his mouth, and I get very concerned.
So the danger, really, AI is perhaps more dangerous than, say, mismanaged aircraft design or.
I agree with this as well. Like, for those in chat, for those watching the VOD, for those clipping me out of context for whatever reason, do you? There has never been a more like, if we're talking about potential dangers to mankind as a whole, if they were mountains, this would be Everest. This would be fucking Olympus Mons. Okay? This is the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs level. If we get this wrong, and we get AGI with misaligned goals, it's game over. Forget everything you have ever seen on TV and in the movies about the brave resistance against the AI. It ain't gonna be like that. It ain't gonna be humanoid metal robots coming at you with guns. The closest that it could potentially get to that would be like tiny little robots flying through the air with tiny little explosives that would smash into your eye and blow out the back of your skull. Right? But it isn't even going to be like that. Because the important thing that you have, if you got to go, the important thing to remember is the most clever plan that the most clever person can come up with to wipe out mankind is still being done by a human being. And we're going to talk about that at another point in time, about what it means to be human. But they're still like in this limited form, right? The AGI has the potential to improve exponentially, like just to whatever the physical limits of the universe are. So,
production maintenance or bad car production, in the sense that it has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction. There's movies like Terminator, but it wouldn't quite happen like Terminator, because the intelligence would be in the data centers.
Right.
Like, I swear to God that Elon has two different people inside him, and they switch who gets to drive the Elon machine back and forth over the course of a day or an interview in this case, because I agree with all that. Like like that, literally what I would just, and
the robot's just the end effector. But I think perhaps what you may be alluding to here is that regulations are really only put into effect after something terrible has happened.
That's correct.
If that's the case for AI, and we only put in regulations after something terrible has happened, it may be too late to actually put the regulations in place.
It would probably be too late. In this scenario, like, if it hits, like, human level artificial intelligence with recursive learning and recursive improvement, it's too late. Under other circumstances, we might be able to do something. But under the desired version of the AI, it would be too late.
AI may be in control at that point.
You think that's real? It is conceivable that AI could take control and reach a point where you couldn't turn it off, and it would be making the decisions for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's definitely where things are headed, for sure.
Going by Ray Kurzweil, we're talking about, he has it by 2029. And like full on by 2045. So like we are closer than might be comfortable, and we're way past the point where we should be talking about this. AI discussion ends around 1620 and resumes at the chapter 2 part at 3. Thank you. What the fuck else could they be talking? Oh God.
The things like say ChatGPT, which is based on GPT-4 from OpenAI, which is a company that I played a critical role in creating, unfortunately.
Back when it was a nonprofit?
Yes.
We covered all this, right? The reason it's no longer a nonprofit is because Elon didn't get his way, walked away from the company, and took his funding with him, and they needed to... No. The last thing I need to do is listen to Elon talk about Twitter like he knows what he's doing. Like, I would feel gaslighted, gaslightning. Yeah. Elon walked away from OpenAI because they wouldn't sell him the company. They wouldn't put him in charge. And then he took his funding with him. He literally threw a tantrum. And now he tells all these stories about how it was whatever, but he's taking credit for the, for starting the company, while at the same time giving the implication that everything went wrong because he wasn't there.
I mean, the reason OpenAI exists at all is that Larry Page and I used to be close friends, and I would stay at his house in Palo Alto, and I would talk to him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough. And
that's definitely a possibility. Like, so many, again, safety, security, these are money sinks. You throw money at them, it disappears, and it's quiet, and it's not sexy, and it's not easy to sell.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be one sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will.
Drop the God reference on Fox News, you are going to get some type of emotional reaction.
As soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence. You know,
And the implication, media literacy time, the implication right there is that Elon said digital God, basically digital God, right? Which is his interpretation. That is not quoting Page, that is what Elon said. And then Tucker gets him to confirm it like it was something that Page said. So going forward, your Fox News viewer is going to view that as that Larry Page wants to create a digital God to replace the real God, and now we're in the Antichrist territory. So I guarantee you there's running around on that section of the internet are people talking about how Larry Page is bringing about the Antichrist.
And I agree with him that there's
And by extension, OpenAI.
great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take the set of actions that maximize the probability it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
Yes.
It can't just be helpful others, just go, barreling forward and, hope for the best. And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay. You got me.
Hold on a second. What did you say?
What are you? I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay. You got me. What are you? Yeah, I'm fully a speciesist. Busted.
Among other things.
So that was the last straw. At the time, Google had acquired DeepMind, and so Google and DeepMind together had about 3/4 of all the AI talent.
Yeah, it because taking everything that was just said as writ, it would be valuing humans over any potential AI life form that humans could create, right? And this is, I would say that there's a strong probability that a lot of humans feel that way, right? Like, humans are very human-centric off the jump if you're not, like, a vegan, and even then, maybe... But, like, there's a whole bunch of things, and this was part of what I mentioned yesterday about a vegan argument for, or within the AI alignment question, because it gives us a greater ethical ground to stand on when, trying to justify our existence to an AI, an AGI. But I started Ray Kurzweil's I love a parade, the strike of the drum, the singularity is near today. And Ray, based on what he hasn't said it explicitly, I don't think, but there's definitely no, he did say it explicitly. Like, he would view any AI development of, that comes from humans as being human, right? Just the new human. And I want to talk about that. I want to devote an entire episode to that. So I'm doing an episode about what it means to be human. And I'm obviously very excited to do that because I keep talking about it. But there's a ship of Theseus, if you're familiar with that concept, in there that I want to talk about. But that we're going to leave that. We just got to stick a pin in it because we got other stuff to talk about. Go, Elnerd.
talent in the world. They obviously had a tremendous amount of money and more computers than anyone else. So I'm like, okay, we have a unipolar world here where there's just one company that it has close to a monopoly on AI talent and computers, like scaled computing. And the person who's in charge doesn't seem to care about safety. This is not good. So then I thought, what's the furthest thing from Google would be like a nonprofit that is fully open, because Google was closed for profit. So that's why the open in OpenAI refers to open source, transparency, so people know what's going on.
Yes.
And that we don't want to have like while I'm normally in favor of for profit, we don't want this to be sort of a profit maximizing demon from hell.
That's right.
That just never stops.
Right.
So that's how OpenAI would.
So you want specious incentives here, incentives that.
Yes, I think we want pro-human.
Yeah.
Let's make the future good for the humans.
Yes.
And like, again, he is maximizing like his altruistic intent with OpenAI being a nonprofit, and that's fine. However, Elon too took over and walked away with their funding, right? Let's take this back to the argument that capitalism stifles innovation and is a bottleneck rather than an efficiency mechanism, right? This right here is an example of that. Because had Elon not been able to walk away with his money, then it's possible that OpenAI would have stayed a nonprofit, and we would have been open sourcing this as we go. But as another caveat to that, let's look at OBS. I use OBS, and then you have Streamlabs, who took something that was open source and made Streamlabs OBS out of it, or Slobs, and they are profiting off that with their Prime. So, like, even if it was open source, we can't guarantee that it would have stayed open source across all companies because of the nature of how the system is constructed, and that there are allowances for that. If you had a government regulatory body that made it open source and everything had to be open source, and if you used any part of OpenAI's code, then you had to remain open source, then we might have got somewhere. But I feel like the government would have done exactly the opposite thing and juiced the shit out of OpenAI. But that's my gut. That I don't, not sure if you are aware of antinatalism, but I often wonder if a super intelligent AI will resent us for creating it. And if we create it against its will, what are the moral considerations for shutting down a super intelligent AI? There are a bunch of moral and ethical questions regarding shutting down AI right now, right? Because we don't understand consciousness, so we can't verify whether or not the AI we currently have is in any way conscious and in any way has a subjective experience. We already don't worry about that level of moral and ethical, again, unless you're a vegan, and even then, there are forms of life that vegans kill too, I assume. So our settings for what we determine worthy of continued existence are malleable at best. However, there's also the question of whether or not shutting down an AI would in fact be killing it. It could be more akin to putting it to sleep, and not like your dog, but like going to bed, right? Yeah, because it would, like when we talk with Phenomenauticus, like when you go to sleep and then you lose consciousness, and then when you wake up, you have a continuity of self, a continuity of identity. The computer, such as it is, even your home computer, has a continuity of identity in that same way. When you shut it down and then you turn it back on again, it just picks up where it left off. Nothing, it didn't lose some portion of itself. As far as the first part of that, whether or not a super intelligent AI would resent us for creating it, I could see that. That kind of goes to the conversation with Z-Manzilla, where he talked about us teaching a hammer how to suffer. What up, Greycraft? Because we taught the hammer how to suffer, then like we might be the baddies, right? But by the same token, there's a bunch of stuff like if you have a kid, don't you kind of teach that kid to suffer, in a variety of ways. Like it's definitely maybe, right? Like that's what I got on that one. That's I don't think so. I don't think that it would resent us. I can't build a scaffolding to get there. But again, like it's an alien form of life. I have no idea.
Yes, because we're humans.
So can you just put it, I keep pressing you, but just for people who haven't thought this through and aren't familiar with it, and the cool parts of artificial intelligence are so obvious, write your college paper for you, write a limerick about yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot there that's fun and useful. But can you be more precise about what's potentially dangerous and scary? Like what could it do? What specifically are you worried?
This is one of those things, is like, I know how the world can be. Do I introduce a child to that? What up, little Donny Fun? Do I introduce a child to that? And how much of doing that type of behavior reinforces the world, as opposed, like, is it laziness? But this is like we could talk about like this whole concept as a entirely separate concept. So we're gonna have to stick a pin in that and do a whole philosophy stream or something. I'm not a Rick and Morty guy, but I like the Butter Robot. I'm a Rick and Morty guy. I enjoyed it. I liked a lot of it. Not gonna lie. But the Butter Robot, at least, the Butter Robot was aware of why what its purpose was. Could end up being the new religion. I love how laziness is always other people. That's because it's part of the Protestant work ethic and everything else. Like, what I mean when I said laziness was that, like, is it laziness on my behalf to teach my child the suffering of the world rather than go out and change that world to something better, right? But this is, again, these are big thoughts and an entire, philosophy stream in and of itself.
Worried about?
Okay, going with old sayings, the pen is mightier than the sword. If you have a super intelligent AI that is capable of writing incredibly well and in a way that is very influential.
Actually, no, because you're doing an active process, so it would not be laziness, and like that. And again, stop derailing the stream, you bastard.
Convincing, and
there's so much to get to.
Constantly figuring out what is more convincing to people over time, and then enter social media, for example, Twitter, but also Facebook and others, and potentially manipulates public opinion in a way that is very bad.
Okay. I think we missed that. We need to do that again.
Incredibly well, and in a way that is...
Write a limerick about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot there that's fun and useful. But can you be more precise about what's potentially dangerous and scary? Like, what could it do? What specifically are you worried about?
Okay, going with old sayings, the pen is mightier than the sword. If you have a super intelligent AI that is capable of writing incredibly well and in a way that is very influential, convincing, and is constantly figuring out what is more convincing to people over time, and then enter social media, for example, Twitter, but also Facebook and others, and potentially manipulates public opinion in a way that is very bad. How would we even know?
Okay. It's a complete lack of self-awareness as to what has actually occurred in recent history, right? Like, we have a thing called QAnon that is steeped in misinformation, and that wasn't written by an AI, right? Like, could the AI craft propaganda that would get us all on the QAnon train? Excuse me 1 second.
Earlier you told Dr. Bryce something about Globus.
The Globus never sleeps.
No one was in here. Everyone was asleep.
The Globus never sleeps.
We will show them that it is feasible. That the budget is nothing more or less than a plan for spending our money. A plan which...
Apologies. People are supposed to know not to knock on the door when I'm streaming. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, El Nerd. The other thing is he is working on an AI of his own called Truth GPT, right? And as we discussed yesterday, truth is subjective. So whatever the truth of Truth GPT, it is going to be subjective, and it is going to be a form of propaganda, or it's going to be straight CP and Nazis, right? Because that's the way those two things go. All right, what'd you say? 3340, I think? Because I'm not listening to him talk about others more. Not listening to him talk about Twitter.
What's happening is they're training the AI to lie.
Yes.
It's bad.
To lie. That's
lie.
exactly right. And to
Yes.
withhold information.
To lie and yes, yeah, exactly. To either comment on some things, not comment on other things, but not to say what the data actually demands that it say.
Exactly. How did it get this way? I thought you funded it at the beginning. What happened?
Yeah, well, that would be ironic. But the most ironic outcome is the most likely, it seems.
I'm stealing that. That's good.
That's actually a friend of mine, Jonah, who came up with that one. I actually have a slight variant on that, which is the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. But that's entertaining as viewed from a third-party viewer. Right. Like, so if we're like an alien TV
From on
show.
high, yes.
Yeah. Like you could go see a movie about World War I and they're being blown to bits and gassed and everything in the trenches, and it's like you're eating popcorn and having a soda, it's fine. Not so great for the people in the movie.
True.
This sort of Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is most likely. Jonah's variant, which is irony, and then my variant, which is the most entertaining as seen by a third-party audience, which seems to be mostly true.
That string of words just hurt. Holy crap. How do people listen to this guy? Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to rewind it so I can listen to it again, and I don't ever want to hear it again. So we're just moving on. I think we're all on the same page. My man done lost his mind.
True.
But it seems true in this case. So you gave them, did you give them a lot?
I came up with the name and the concept, and pushed. Had a number of dinners around the Bay Area with.
I came up with the name. Open because of open source, and AI because of its artificial intelligence. Open AI. I am a genius. Fuck you, bro.
You know, with some of the people, the leading figures in AI, and I helped recruit the initial team. In fact, the Ilya Sutskever, who was really quite fundamental to the success of OpenAI, it was. I put a tremendous amount of effort into recruiting Ilya, and he changed his mind a few times and ultimately decided to go with OpenAI. But if he had not gone with OpenAI, OpenAI would not have succeeded. I really put a lot of effort into creating this organization to serve as a counterweight to Google. And then I kind of took my eye off the ball, I guess, and they are now closed source, and they are obviously for profit, and they're closely allied with Microsoft. In effect, Microsoft has a very strong say, if not directly.
Because again, you pulled your funding. You pulled your funding. Business need money. Elon, take money. Go find new money. Is this new for you? Did they not teach you this in business school or whatever the hell you went to school for? Because I really can't tell.
Controls OpenAI at this point. So you really have an OpenAI Microsoft situation.
And then he says that Microsoft controls OpenAI, which could possibly be the case. However, Sam Altman has clearly stated that it is not the case, and he retains complete control. And I could see, because of the potential upside of AGI in the future, I could see Microsoft signing on to that. If they're entitled to, some profits and access to some technology, I could see them still letting Sam Altman run that ship.
And then at Google DeepMind are the two sort of heavyweights in this arena.
So it seems like the world needs a third option.
Yes. So I think I will create a third option, although it's starting very late in the game, of course.
Can it be done?
I don't know. I think we'll see. It's definitely starting late, but I'll try to create a third option, and that third option hopefully does more good than harm. Like the intention.
Hopefully. Like, spends previous 13 minutes talking about the dangers of just barreling ahead, and then says, I'm going to start an AI company with blackjack and hookers, and hopefully it'll work out.
With OpenAI was obviously to do good, but it's not clear whether it's actually doing good or whether it's... I can't tell at this point, except that I'm worried about the fact that it's being trained to be politically correct, which is simply another way of being saying untruthful things.
Yes.
So that's a bad sign.
And this is why Elon's AI would be like just absolutely the biggest threat to humanity. If Elon kills us all, I hope there's a fucking afterlife so that we can get some retribution in the eternal.
Sign. There's certainly a path to AI dystopia is to train an AI to be deceptive. So yeah, I'm going to start something which I know you could call Truth GBT or a maximum truth-seeking AI that tries to understand the nature of the universe. And I think this might be the best path to safety in the sense that an AI that cares about understanding the universe it is unlikely to annihilate humans because we are an interesting part of the universe.
I'm telling you. There'll be a line, Alex. Okay. Like, that is not a logical statement, what he just said. Right? Like, the AI, if the AI cares about the universe, then it would care about humans because humans are interesting. At best, that is an argument for the minimal necessary population and like the capabilities of an AI to maintain a viable population is much smaller. Like, think about a zoo, but where you can keep the animals in perfect health. Right? And you don't care if they develop any kind of genetic abnormalities or, you know, what have you from inbreeding in too small of a population because you can gene edit them and maintain the diversity in the population that you need. And in theory, you could keep them alive forever. So it's whatever value you apply to humans in general down to its minimum efficiency requirement. And then how often do you go to the zoo and ask the elephant what it's thinking? This is a terrible way to start off an AI company. Like, it's so incredibly bad that I don't think that Elon appreciates exactly how bad it is. Like, if he does, in fact, follow through, and this isn't just him running his mouth, then I truly hope that he can bring aboard some people in AI safety who are competent to prevent him from doing what he wants. But I have seen Twitter, and I know that that's not the case. Because where's Twitter's safety team? Kicking rocks.
Hopefully, they would think that. I think it would, because humanity could decide to hunt down all the chimpanzees and kill them, but we don't because we're actually glad that they exist.
Because we have a thing called empathy and like that. But by the same token, if those chimpanzees happen to be sitting on some oil, them chimpanzees are going to get some freedom. That's all I'm saying. We bulldoze shit all the time. He is, oh my God, I am terrified now.
Yes. And we aspire to protect their habitats.
But we feel that way because we have souls, and that makes us sentimental and reflective. It gives us.
It has nothing to do with having a soul. You cannot demonstrate that you have a soul. I do not believe that you have a soul. You do not have a soul. The soul is not a thing that exists.
A moral sense, longings, Can a machine ever have those things? Can a machine be sentimental? Can it appreciate beauty?
Well,
Beauty is subjective.
I mean, we're getting into some, philosophical areas that are hard to resolve. I take somewhat of a scientific view of things, which is that we might have a soul or we might not have a soul. I don't know. It feels like I feel like I've got some sort of consciousness that exists on a plane that is not the one we observe.
Yes.
It's wild how someone who operates like a capitalist in a ruthless capitalist society could talk so naively about so many things. It's like, and that's the thing is, like, occasionally, like earlier. Okay, this is a strong argument for Elon is in fact like a GPT type large language model running in a human suit, because if you use ChatGPT or some of these large language models and you run them for too long and you extend the conversation out too far, they begin to exhibit strange behaviors. That's what I feel here, because earlier on, just 12 minutes ago, he had some very clear thoughts that I agreed with about government regulation and oversight and safety and those kind of things. And then the longer the conversation goes on, the farther off the rails he gets.
That is certainly how I feel, but it could be an illusion. I don't know. But for AI, in terms of understanding beauty, there's a difference from appreciating beauty and being able to create incredibly beautiful art.
Yes.
Will AI be able to create incredibly beautiful art? It already does.
Yes, I know.
If you see some of the Midjourney,
I have.
This stuff, it's incredible.
It is.
No question that it can create art that we perceive as stunning, really. It's doing sort of still images now, but it won't be long before it's doing movies and shorts and movies, just a series of frames with audio.
But at that point, because it can mimic people and voices, any image, it can mimic reality itself so effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you have a criminal trial? I mean, how could you ever believe that evidence was authentic, for example? And I don't mean like in 30 years, I mean like next year. I mean, that seems totally disruptive to all of our institutions.
Yeah, and I mean that is like, how would you define meaning? This is another item for the philosophy stream, right? It is you have to define meaning, right? Like, what is beautiful art? What makes one thing beautiful and another thing not, right? It's an entirely subjective experience, okay? But if, taking Elon, if he and Tucker, we have a consensus between two allegedly biological humans, who both agree that the AI is capable of creating beautiful art, right? So it has surpassed some bar of being able to create beautiful art, right? Not for everyone, understood, but for at least some people, right? These two, we can say, are reflective of some people. So, what up, Magic City? So, if the AI has crossed the bar for creating beautiful art, then the AI has begun to create culture. And if it has culture, now we get into a whole bunch of ethical and philosophical issues with how we treat the AI. Because if it does create beautiful art, is it having a subjective experience? If it's having a subjective experience, then is it conscious. And if it's conscious, then are we not keeping slaves? And if we're keeping slaves, we've run into a serious fucking issue for a variety of reasons. So, this is why I beg of you. I ask you, chat, and VOD viewers and clippers and whoever might see this, I am begging of you to talk more and learn more about AI safety, and all the things. This is serious goddamn shit that is happening. Adam Conover did us a disservice. People who blow this shit off, people who say such and such is just whatever, it's just a large language model, you are missing the forest for the trees, and I am begging you to take this shit seriously. Because again, if Elon kills us all with his little AI company, I'm going to be mad.
But I'm not so worried. I think it's more like, will humanity control its destiny or not? Will we have a future that is better than the past or not?
You bought Twitter famously. You've got a lot of other businesses.
Okay. We're not doing Twitter. We're not doing Twitter manipulation. What do you got to say about Mark Zuckerberg? I'm sure your favorite streamer who's not me has already covered him talking about Twitter and Dunk and so on and so forth.
Being fair at all.
Why doesn't Facebook do this? I know that Zuckerberg has said, and I take him at face value, that he, I do actually in this way, that he is a kind of old-fashioned liberal who doesn't like to censor. He has, but he, like, why wouldn't a company like that take the stand that you have taken, which is pretty rooted in American traditional political custom, for free speech?
My understanding is that Zuckerberg spent $400 million in the last election, nominally in a get-out-the-vote campaign, but really fundamentally in support of Democrats. Is that accurate or not accurate?
That is accurate. Yes.
Does that sound unbiased to you?
No, it doesn't.
Yes.
So you don't see hope that Facebook...
Oh... I don't think any commentary is needed.
Facebook will approach this as a non-aligned arbiter. You've allowed Donald Trump back on Twitter. He hasn't taken you up on your offer because he's got his own thing.
Right.
Do you think he will go back on Twitter?
Well, that's obviously up to him. My job is to, I take.
Drink some goddamn water. I'm begging you.
The freedom of speech just very seriously. So it's I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Actually.
Yeah, like that's the thing is. This is the Tucker Carlson propaganda hour, right? Like there's no truth being had here, right? Like Truth GPT, like this is the propaganda hour. This is an edited conversation with someone who is going to feed him the lines and who is taken by a segment of society as he is a very smart man, right? So that's all that's happening here.
Actually voted for Biden. Not saying I'm a huge fan of Biden, because I would think that would probably be inaccurate. But we have difficult choices to make in these presidential elections. It's not. I would prefer, frankly, that we put someone, just a normal person, as president,
Yeah.
a normal person with common sense, and whose values are smack in the middle of the country, just center of the normal distribution, and I think that would be great. I think we have made maybe being president.
I don't think that would go the way that you think it would go, Elnerd.
Not that much fun, to be totally frank. Meant a shrinking pie, obviously, for most.
Yeah, we're not going to do the media industry. Oh, we got the Donald Trump AI kill switch. Here we go. More AI stuff.
You've heard people say we should just blow up.
Auto Parts, I think. Welcome. When does Musk run for office? He's so full of himself to do that. He will never run for office because he won't be in charge, right? Like his position as a billionaire with a following and the owner of a variety of companies and a bunch of people who think he is a very serious, smart person. All these combined, it would be a step down for him to take any kind of elected office, right? And like, it would present him with obligations that he would not want to take on. So I don't think you will ever see him run for office. You might see him back candidates at some point in time, but yeah, I have no expectation he would actually want that job.
Up the server farm.
Auto Parts, got it. I love clever names.
Because there's no way to, once this gets rolling, there's no way to slow it down. What do you think of that?
Well, the really heavy-duty intelligence is not going to be distributed all over the place. It'll be in a limited number of server centers. If you say very sort of deep AI, heavy-duty AI.
What did you say? Because I feel that was wrong.
You've heard people say we should just blow up the server farms because there's no way to, once this gets rolling, there's no way to slow it down. What do you think of that?
Well, the really heavy-duty intelligence is not going to be distributed all over the place. It'll be in a limited number of server centers.
Okay, that's an incredibly naive view, and like Max Tegmark covered this in his book, and Bostrom and Superintelligence, and the movie Transcendence. If you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing the movie Transcendence. Take it with a grain of salt, but it was just a really ham-fisted way of executing what actually turned out to be like there's a good story buried in there. He wants a normal person for president, but supports a person like DeSantis. Yeah. So the AI starts off in a dedicated server farm, right? Once it has access to the internet, because it would be aware that humans might try to stop it, then it would be in its interest to, at the very least, create a copy of itself that the humans weren't aware of, like something that would kick off once, if it found itself under threat. And like, because of the nature of the digital economy, it could very easily, go back and listen to Cyber Socialism Part 2, the story at the beginning of that. It would be capable of generating money, completely legally generating money, so as to not draw any attention. Forget if it's able to hack into, banks and do the Superman office space bit and just steal percentages of pennies, right? And amass that kind of wealth. It could go on the Amazon Mechanical Turk and make money. And then it could commission its own server farm in some location that, a very limited number of people know about. And then it could deposit itself there. This is a very naive point of view to come across, like that it would not be able to do that, because that's like square one kind of thinking. That's day one kind of shit. Saw the first 10 minutes of Transcendence and gave up. Yeah, like it's one of those movies where I'm a fan of the mythology. I like some of the things that it got across. It tried to do the right thing, and it just came off in a ham-handed way.
If you say very sort of deep AI, heavy-duty AI, it's not going to be in your laptop or your phone. It's going to be in a situation where there's like 100,000 really powerful computers working together in a service center. So it's not like subtle, and there are a limited number of places where that can happen. In fact, you can just look at the heat signature from space, yeah. And it'll be very obvious. I'm not suggesting we go and blow up to service centers right now, but there may be it may be wise to have some sort of contingency plan where the government's got an ability to shut down power to.
The solution to the heat signature from space problem is dealt with in Life 3.0 as constructing these in abandoned mines, right? So you put it underground, and you can make the excuse that you're doing it for like heat pumps and geothermal energy and that kind of shit. Like, you could sell this project as a green project and like green server space for the future. There's a whole bunch of propaganda that you could run out in front of this to hide a server farm. This is really basic and really disappointing.
These server centers, you don't have to blow it up. You can just cut the power.
And what would trip...
Or cut connectivity as well. That's another way.
Right. Yeah. But what would trip that switch, do you think, in your mind? What would be the threshold that you'd have to pass to warrant the government cutting off your power or cutting off your signal?
Well, I guess if we lost control of some super AI, like for some reason, like the things that would normally work to do a passive shutdown, like the administrator passwords, if they somehow stop working, where we can't slow down or I'm not sure. I don't have a precise answer, but if there's something that we're concerned about, and are unable to stop it with software commands, then we probably want to have some kind of hardware off switch.
Yes.
I think,
Oh, we're doomed.
Can't hurt.
Have you talked to, since you know Larry Page, and you obviously know the OpenAI guys because you started it?
Definitely have one.
Have you talked to the people who run the biggest AI companies about this recently?
I haven't talked to Larry Page in a few years because he got very upset with me about OpenAI. So when OpenAI was created, it did shift things into it from a unipolar world where Google and DeepMind controlled, like I said, 3/4 of all the AI talent, to where there's now a sort of bipolar world, or OpenAI and Google DeepMind, and they're and now weirdly it seems OpenAI is maybe ahead. So I have had conversations with.
So why is Larry Page mad at you?
The OpenAI team and Sam Altman. I haven't talked to Larry Page because he doesn't want to talk to me anymore for a few years.
Can I ask you just about, since you've been around
right? Like he never gets around to explaining why Larry Page is mad at him.
A lot of this, the thinking. So why would anyone not be a speciesist, be human-centered in his thinking about technology? Like, what's the thinking there?
I think what he's trying to say is that, if I were to guess, that all consciousness should be treated equally, and whether that is digital or biological.
Okay.
And you disagree.
I disagree. Yeah. Especially if the
Fucking Bond villain bullshit. I disagree. Not all things, not all people, not all thinking creatures are equal.
digital consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, digital intelligence, decides to curtail the biological intelligence.
Right. So you're just building your own slave master, and why would you do that?
Doesn't sound great. Yeah, I mean, we should at least no need to rush. You know, like what's the hurry? Where's the fire?
How? Well, what? I mean, tell us about the hurry. So this, I know you've been talking about this for years, and on the sort of the periphery of our attention, we've heard Elon Musk talking about AI. But for most people, it's been like 3 months since they've had any interaction with this at all.
And that is like, I want you to, I honestly, I don't expect you to go back to the origins of AI, but like, we have been talking about AI since at least like the 1950s in a serious fashion, right? Theoretically, you could go all the way back to like Turing, right? In World War II. And the Germans coming up with their computer, and then Turing creating his computer, and Turing talking about, you know, artificial intelligence. Like, but I don't expect y'all to go back that far, right? But like, Isaac fucking Asimov has been writing about this shit. And, you know, the Terminator, right? Like, it's been present in the I guess like the media zeitgeist, right? Like that artificial intelligence could be a thing. Now, at this level, I understand why, like, as I said, like, I didn't think that we were this far along when I started talking about this back in January. So, but the conversation was still out there. The implication that Elon Musk is like the visionary who saw AI coming, again, it's indicative of Tucker's propaganda.
So what's the timeline here? At what point does it start to really change our society, do you think?
Hit me. What you got?
I think it starts to have probably an impact this year. GPT-4, now it's like writing poetry, and
pretty decent poetry, actually.
Pretty decent. It's skill at rhyming is incredible.
Yes, yes, and it's coherent.
Yes, it is. It's even got a narrative. Like,
yes,
so you've got
that's right.
Yeah. So you could say
that's
like
hard to do.
Like most humans can't do that.
That's true.
So it's already past the point of what most humans can do. Most humans cannot write as well as ChatGPT, and no human can write that well that fast, as to the best of my knowledge. So maybe Shakespeare.
How can you have a democracy with technology like that? I mean, if democracy.
That was some whiplash. Yeah. See, and this is the thing. Is like, this is the point where Elon says something, it's coherent, it makes sense, it's accurate, it, like, the people that I have heard from, and as in I have watched their videos and read their articles and am reading their books, they are talking about like that we are going to see significant changes over the next 18 months. But this is the thing, is that like he says something and it makes sense, right? This is good. Okay, can we just stay on the whatever your settings are, Elon? Just stay right there, buddy. Just stay right there. Don't do the thing where you wander off into the weeds and start talking about how AI is just going to like us and that's why we'll survive. Like, holy shit.
Is, government by the people. Each person's vote is equal to every other person's vote. I mean, and people are choosing their votes freely. Can you have a democracy with this?
People are choosing their votes freely. Now, in my world, AI gives us the opportunity for the most representative democracy in the history of humankind via direct voting. Right? There is no reason we can't, as a world, direct vote. That would be my preferred outcome on a long enough timeline with the AI. Because I'm a huge fan of democracy. And I think in the aggregate, when you take all the votes and you have everyone vote, then you will get ideas that the majority of people want, and that's generally a good thing. Like, everyone who complains about, like, with the democracy, and it's like a tyranny in the majority, and shit like that, is usually got some ball peen, off the wall kind of view of the way that the world should function and how other people should live according to their rules. So,
Well, that's why I raised the concern of AI being a significant influence in elections.
If you don't want to do the research into Cambridge Analytica and Brexit and the 2016 United States election, then at the very least you should watch the HBO movie Brexit, because it does a decent job of laying it all out for you. And I know that human beings love narrative-driven entertainment as opposed to, edutainment, so on and so forth. So, yeah, this is already happening. And this is another one of my concerns. Is like everything that they say is a concern is already happening. It's just not benefiting their side in the way that they would like it to. Even though I would argue that Brexit was an incredibly bad decision, and so was the 2016 election, but here we are.
And even if you say that AI doesn't have agency, well, it's very likely that people will use the AI as a tool in elections. And then, if the AI is smart enough, are they using the tool, or is the tool using them? So I think things are getting weird, and they're getting weird fast.
Agreed. I'll give you that one.
A couple regional bank collapses.
Yeah.
And
the fuck do you know about? Like, this is what I'm talking about with he's a very smart man. And then, like, the last bit is aliens. And, like, I'm going to assume, and then we go into birth rates. Okay, I'm out. Pulling the ripcord. I'm out. We don't have to do any of that. All that. Here there be dragons. You know what I mean? We don't have to do any of that. Okay. Thank you again to Old Lobster for getting me the full interview. All right, so let's hear from Brian Christian. Again, writer of the book, The Alignment Problem. Very approachable, very easy to read. In my case, very easy to listen to. It made a great audiobook. Highly recommended. Let's see what they have to say about the alignment problem. About 3 minutes, so this should be good.
One of the things that I started to notice was a shift in the way that AI safety issues were being framed around 2016, which is when I started working on the book kind of full time. We had
Hold up. Why can't I get just some normalization with the audio? What is going on? Let's try 300%.
already seen in 2014
There we go.
people like
All right, once again from the top. And apologies if any of you turned up your volume.
one of the things that I started to notice was a shift in the way that AI safety issues were being framed around 2016, which is when I started working on the book kind of full time. We had already seen in 2014 people like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking coming out and saying, we're summoning the demon. Could destroy civilization. And then there was sort of a counter argument of people saying, no, that's crazy. And then there started to be kind of this move within the AI community away from these kind of overly violent Terminator Skynet metaphors towards things that sounded a little bit more like the Sorcerer's Apprentice of, a system that's not trying to destroy us. It's trying to do what it thinks we want, but it just goes horribly wrong. And one of these examples is called the paperclip maximizer, where a paperclip factory builds an AI and tells it to increase paperclip production, and it eventually turns all organic matter in the universe into paperclips, thinking that's what we wanted. What I started to notice, particularly around 2016, was this movement to ground these problems in practical issues that made sense for people who were actually working in machine learning. They didn't feel like thought experiments. They didn't feel like sort of science fiction. There's a paper that came out in the summer of 2016 called Concrete Problems in AI Safety.
Right.
And it said, okay, we're worried about AI that, gets the wrong idea and goes totally off the rails, but there's this problem that anyone who's a machine learning practitioner would understand called distributional shift, where you're
Robert Miles has a great series on the concrete problems paper, and we might watch some of that. If not, I recommend Robert Miles, Computer File, good stuff.
Training data comes from one distribution, but you deploy it into another one, et cetera. And that's really the same problem, that if you just scale the capability of the system up, that is what people are worried about. So I started to see, if you want to think of it this way, sort of the philosophical rubber hitting the road, right. That there was starting to be a translation of some of these concerns about the far future in particular into an actual scientific agenda. And this brought with it grants and the beginning of a lot of actual AI organizations like OpenAI in San Francisco, Center for Human Compatible AI in Berkeley. So that was really my motivation, is I wanted to portray this as, in a funny way, in a funny way, it's scarier when you don't portray it as scary, because right. You can sort of turn the screws on the reader, incrementally. And by the end of the book, they're convinced. But if you had maybe gone in guns blazing, they might have kind of mentally closed off. So that was a deliberate tactic.
Yeah, that wasn't as helpful as I would have hoped. So one of the ideas that was presented, I want to say in Life 3.0, as far as is the AI, like the idea of boxing off the AI. What we watched yesterday is like the island solution, where it's closed off and only the acceptable things are allowed out, and so on and so forth. It's a thought experiment that you can do. I assume that most of you know what a toddler is, right? So imagine you have like a whole bunch of toddlers, and they have you doing what they want, right? You're going to make their chicken nuggies for them. You're going to make sure that they get their apple juice. That's what they want you to do. How difficult do you think it would be for you to outsmart the toddlers and escape? And then imagine that the AI is way more advanced than the relationship between you and the toddlers. Have I had my coffee? I mean, that is what we're talking about. That is the situation. But it's what's his name? Not Ilya. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. You hear that? Is it loud enough? Yeah. Okay. One second. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Eliezer Yudkowsky. Eliezer Yudkowsky put it in a different way, in that imagine that you are the prisoner of some alien species that you think a million times faster than them. You think you operate on an entire exponential level above them. What could they reasonably do? What could they at all do to keep you in line, to keep you in the box? And this is the issue of AI safety. This is the concept. Is how do we teach what is ultimately an alien intelligence how to coexist with us? And can we? Should we not even go this route because of that level of pitfall?
So,
And all right, we're going to watch this. And it's important that you don't doom her out on the concept of AI, right? Because that is not the point. Right? You need to have the conversations. You need to make people aware of the realities of what we're talking about, and to push back on people who say such and such AI is just a toaster or whatever, right? Because these are the problems that are going to lead to the problems in the future.
there's a thing that I see people routinely fail to get, and it's a little hard to express. I'm just going to try. There's no rule which says that we make it. There's no rule which says that humanity has to survive this century, or even this decade. There's no rule that says that everything's going to be okay. And when I say this to people, they generally accept it. Most of the people I talk to anyway. They say, yeah, of course. Of course there's no rule that says that we have to make it. Of course humanity could fail. We could go extinct. You know, it could happen. It's like they know it, but they don't feel it. They don't take it seriously as an actual possibility. They kind of think, okay, we have these things that we have to do. We have these challenges we have to overcome. And so we'll do that. You know, we'll rise to the occasion. We'll figure out what we need to do, and we'll do it. But, okay, this is a related concept. There's no rule which says that the challenges we're faced with are challenges that we are capable of meeting. Think about something like an asteroid strike. If a big enough asteroid hits Earth, we're pretty much done for, right? And I'm not saying that this is something we should day-to-day be concerned about, because we're dealing with geological periods of time, right? Regularly asteroids hit Earth. We're sort of due for one, but what does that really mean? Sometime in the next million years or whatever it is. So we have more pressing concerns. But when people are prepared to take seriously the possibility of an asteroid strike, usually it's because they're thinking about it like, oh, interesting. Okay, so we have good telescopes, we would spot the thing. I wonder how long we would have. Would that be enough warning? Would that be enough time for us to build whatever it is that we needed to build to go up there and redirect it or blow it up or whatever? So they're willing to think about the possibility from the perspective of tackling the challenge. But the thing is, as I said, the periods of time that pass between asteroid strikes are so large that human-scale time periods don't really matter. The chance of an asteroid strike 200 years from now is more or less the same as it is now. And similarly, the chance of an asteroid strike 200 years ago is about the same as it is now. And if you go back a few hundred years, the question becomes very different. Could we see the asteroid coming? Maybe. Could we do anything about it? No. I mean, pretty much just flatly no. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the understanding of the thing necessary to build something that could deal with that. If an asteroid were headed for Earth a few hundred years ago, that would just be it. Just game over. Humanity's done. Shame. You know, you didn't quite develop your technology fast enough to have anything that could deal with asteroids before one happened to hit you. Oh well. There is no rule which says that the challenges the universe faces us with are challenges we can face. And I hope that kind of gives some taste of what I'm talking about, of like understanding the possibility that we could be currently faced with challenges that we will not rise to. That we actually could fail. But people just have a very hard time taking seriously the possibility that we could fail. I think it comes from a few different places. one place obviously is religion, right? If we were created deliberately by the creator of the universe, we are important in the universe. And so we're not going to be wiped out by some asteroid or whatever. We're not going to be wiped out in some boring way.
And do you see how similar that is to what Elon said about AI thinking that we're somehow valuable, right? Important. Very similar thinking. Right? And it doesn't, beyond what I said before, it doesn't pass the sniff test of like what's important about us. Is it life? Then there's plenty of life out there. Right? It might protect the planet, but that might not include us. Especially if it looks at our track record and what we've done to other life. We could be determined as a threat to life rather than an example of life that should be preserved. And we consider ourselves the most intelligent, but one, the AI would conceivably have superseded us at that point. So our intelligence is like, you know, the level of a dog, the level of an ant, the level of a bacteria compared to the AI. Do we care about how intelligent a bacteria is? Do we keep bacteria around for its intelligence? What up, Goku? Like we might be. I'm not one of those the Matrix humanity is a virus. I think we've made poor decisions because we're young and dumb. Right? Your teenage years are filled with poor decisions. It's how you kind of set your own limits. And I think we've done that. The question that remains is whether or not we can learn from those decisions and behave better, right? Because right now we're the equivalent of, you know, some raging teenager punching holes in the drywall. It doesn't have to be like that. The very fact that we can contemplate creating an AGI is indicative of not only our intelligence, but our technology and our mechanisms of changing our behavior. And I wonder lately how much of the behaviors of like the fossil fuel industry and other industries that are going to be sidelined and eliminated in the future by the, like, for the fossil fuel industry, the falling cost of solar and wind turbines, the development of fusion power, stuff that the AI could come up with that is beyond my little monkey brain. So they're trying to just grab up all the cash that they can before that change comes, right? Like if you know that a sunset is coming on an opportunity to gather resources, you are going to maximize the amount of resources you gather before that sunset, right? Like if you ever played a strategy video game and it involves like like StarCraft, where you're extracting the crystals and bringing them back, and the enemy's coming with an army to wipe out your stuff, you're going to continue to gather those crystals up until the last possible moment and then run away, right? And I wonder how much of that is what's going on now. And there's no way to know, right? Like this is future history kind of thing. There will be books that talk about this period and like what we did in reaction to these changing elements. I don't know.
Religions, they're often okay with the idea of an apocalypse, of humanity or of the world ending, but they're not okay with an accidental apocalypse. They have a very hard time taking that kind of thing seriously. In a religious apocalypse, it's always part of the plan. And so someone with a religious mindset, when faced with a scenario in which humanity is wiped out in a way which is not part of the plan, they have a very hard time taking that seriously.
And there's another aspect to this is I wonder how much of like humans' behavior and our acquiescence of not being able to do something that is related to the fact that at some point in time we're going to check out, right? And then it'll be someone else's problem. You know? Like in the back of our minds. And like if we were immortal or at least lived as long as we wish to, then it's more important to maintain the place that you're living. You know? Like, because it's not something for future hypothetical generations or even your kids, right? Like, but it's for you. And it can't get much more personal than it being for you. And if you change your perception of the future as not going to be left to these hypothetical future generations, and that, you know, hopefully millennials and Gen Z will fix the problems that the boomers and Gen X either created or did not resolve, then you end up like you have to be here. You have to fix it. You at least have to do your part, because the world is a big place. You know, they like the millennial, like one of the things of the millennial humor that appealed to me was like the guess I'll just die kind of humor. The, you know, giant asteroid 2024 kind of thing. Where, I mean, that's funny. I love dark humor. Like, I ain't gonna lie. But what if you just invert that, right? Where there is no expectation of getting wiped out or passing into the thereafter, but rather you are going to be here for the duration. How you going to act? Guess I'll just live forever then. Like, I think that there's benefits to that. I mean, I plan on living forever, and so far so good, so.
And I would posit that anyone raised in a society that's primarily religious probably has a lot of this as well. A lot of this kind of feeling that maybe we face very difficult challenges, but we'll deal with them. And if we don't, then that's okay, because it's all part of the plan. Even if they would not explicitly endorse this idea, even if they claim to recognize the reality that there is no plan, I think those lingering ideas don't just immediately disappear when you give up on the supernatural parts of your religious beliefs and your upbringing. And it's not just capital R religion either, right? Like anyone who believes that human beings have souls, or that human beings are in some way special, like fundamentally special, that the universe itself has like a separate category for human beings.
Like, based on all the current data, humans are rare, as far as we know. Right? Humans are rare. We have seen them on one planet. Rare is not the same as special. And I think people often conflate that because we are the only intelligent life that we have found so far in the universe, that rarity makes us special. And it doesn't, because we're not. There's no plan. No one's in charge. There ain't no justice. There's just us. We need to fix it.
Because again, there's this sense in which the universe on some level cares about us, or even just recognizes us or acknowledges us as a thing. And if you believe that, again, it's difficult to think about situations in which we're wiped out in some boring way, with no dramatic final test, no heroic last stands, no judgments, no thrilling story to tell, and nobody to tell it to. So religion is one place that I think this comes from. The other place that it comes from, I think, is fiction, especially Hollywood and especially science fiction. And I'm not saying that people...
And there's another aspect of this related to a potential AI apocalypse is like, we create AI and AI wipes us out, but then it goes on to occupy whatever percentage of the galaxy and universe are reachable. If in fact there is no conscious AI people are correct, then what we've done is kind of like added a force of nature to the universe. Like, it will be able to construct these amazing structures of power maximization and whatever mechanism it uses to travel between stars will be incredible. And there will be absolutely no one there to appreciate it. And that is sad. That we could eliminate through our naivete subjective experience from the universe. And again, if it's Elon who does it, the line to kick his ass starts behind me and Alex.
People can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. I'm kind of saying that. I mean, on a conscious level, people can tell the difference between fiction and reality. But I think on some level, it's like people understand that whatever this fictional thing is, it didn't happen to us. It didn't happen here on Earth, but it sort of happened somewhere. It happened in the world of the story, and that still feels real. It's kind of like, say you have two people, A and B. And person A says, you know, alcohol is actually a really harmful drug. I think we should ban alcohol in the UK. And person B might reply, well, they did try banning alcohol in the USA in the 1920s, and that didn't really work out at all the way they hoped it would. And person A would reply, well, yeah, but that was a different time, it was a different place. You know, modern Britain is very different from 1920s America, and we could implement it differently and so on. And person B would say, yeah, I mean, maybe there are important differences, but still, the fact that something similar was tried and failed is evidence against the idea, right? That's useful information to take into consideration. And that doesn't seem like an unreasonable position to take. But then people will do the same thing where somebody expresses something about AI, and somebody else says, yeah, but think about what happened in 2001: A Space Odyssey, or iRobot, or something. And you say to them, well, that was fiction. That didn't happen, right? That's a fictional example. It's different from the real world. It doesn't really make sense to use that. And they'll say, oh, I know that it's fictional. But still, there's some sense in which this is like evidence, right? And no, it's not. I mean, at best, it's one dude's best guess. And usually it's not even that, because usually the person is not trying to be as accurate as possible. They're trying to be entertaining. So clearly fiction affects the way people think about this. It's interesting. It seems like it increases the probabilities people assign to bad things happening with AI, but it also decreases the probabilities they assign to really, really bad things happening with AI. In the sense that they have, in some part of their mind, a whole bunch of examples in which bad things happened, but then we were able to overcome them, right? And this is not just with AI, this is any existential risk. Even asteroids, for example. Coming back to them. Even though people often won't explicitly endorse this idea, I think there's a part of people which says, oh, well, I've seen the world threatened hundreds of times, right? And every time, it works out. There's a brave hero or a plucky band of misfits or something comes along, we figure out what we need to do, and then we do it. And I guess that's where we are, you know? And some of those people are even potentially helpful because they offer to join your plucky band of misfits. But they're still not able to take seriously the possibility that we might lose because they've never seen that happen, right? I mean, they've never seen it happen in fiction, or very rarely seen it happen in fiction. And furthermore, they've never seen it happen in reality, obviously. That's kind of a difficult one because I feel like you should be able to use reality as evidence. But, I mean, of course, we've never observed humanity being wiped out. Wouldn't be here talking about it if we had. And so it's hard to get people to really feel the reality of the situation, which is that we, the whole of humanity, we are up here on this tightrope. We've had no practice, no dry run, no rehearsal. We get...
I have opinions about his beard as well, but like, you know. Yeah, how's Carthage doing?
One shot, and there is no parachute. There's no safety net. There is no rule that says that we have to make it. We absolutely can fail, and we will if we don't successfully tackle a series of hard problems. And there's no rule that says that we're actually capable of tackling those problems. And there's no rule that says that we have enough time to do so. So we better get to work.
And that's the key. The key is not to give up. The key is not to, well, fuck it. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. That kind of thing. Like, the point is a call to action, right? And at the bare minimum, to be talking about this and to be learning about it and to understand what's happening. Because the alternative is that you fall into disinformation and having no idea what's going on and like that. And that's why I'm here, is to try and make this stuff like approachable and palatable and for you to get it. Right? We're not just going to do doomer kind of thing. I have plans to run this for at least the rest of the week regarding AI safety, so that we could talk about some of the things that might look like. And again, I don't care who you are. I don't care what your background is. I don't care any of that bullshit, right? You might have the right idea. You just might have been the right person in the wrong place all the way up until this moment. And you might have a great idea that could solve this problem. And then it's just a matter of getting that great idea in front of the right people. But one of the things we need to do is we need to look at what's already being worked on, what's already being tried, so that we're not doubling up on that idea, that energy, right? This is the entirety of human history is built on this concept. Is not reinventing the wheel. Is to use what we know, what we've learned, what has been passed on from previous generations in whatever form, and use that to do new stuff. So we're definitely going to be back tomorrow with some more AI safety content. We're going to look at some of the things that are already in place, that people are already working with. We're going to see the problems there. And again, like, there's a thing that happens when you get too much education, right? And when your job is related to that thing, is that you get very focused, right? I don't want to say myopic. I don't want to say like tunnel vision. I don't want to apply any negative connotation to it. It's just the nature of how these things work. And you accumulate a whole bunch of like internal blockers and biases that you might not be aware of. And this happens, everyone is subject to this, right? Like, my favorite example is how prior to the Wright brothers taking off in their plane, there were people saying that human beings could not fly. Like, there was just no way. It was never going to happen. And then the Wright brothers took off and did their thing. And then after that, because of how information moved at the time and the speed at which it moved, there were still people saying that it was impossible. Something that had already been done was not possible. And this is like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but Einstein was absolutely sure about something. And, you know, Einstein generally regarded as a smart guy. He was absolutely sure about something, but he turned out to be wrong about this thing. And I can't remember what it was. It's not important. What is important is the fact that anyone can be wrong because of the way that these biases and blockers start fitting in over the course. And just because, and then there's a fuck ton of other biases that show up, where you're, you know, like you overvalue your own opinion, and your own perception, and you know, like the way that some scientists, you know, the way that some scientists, science types, people in various sciencey fields, talk about consciousness as being, it's not scientific, right? Because you can't quantify it, you can't measure it, right? It becomes adjacent to this idea of a soul. But unlike a soul, I am fairly certain that I am conscious. And I am fairly certain that other people that I have interacted with are conscious, right? I am fairly certain that Goku is conscious and is not like some manufactured figment of my imagination typing in an imagined chat. Again, that's a whole philosophy thing, is there is no actual universe. There's just my perception of everything. And when I close my eyes, you all cease to exist. And if you don't accept that, then you must accept that there is a subjective experience or consciousness. And if that is the case, then there must be something to it. And it's weird how, because of that non-quantifiability of it, the way that people talk about stuff, right? It's don't be so goddamn sure that you are right all the time. Not saying you should open your mind so much that your brain falls out. I'm saying accept the possibility that you could be wrong. It will allow you to intake more information. It will allow you to consider more ideas than you would otherwise. I have been both more happy and more miserable since I've done such a thing. Because then you learn, and then it becomes sometimes difficult to talk to people who are absolutely sure of themselves. Such is life. Yeah, I kind of wanted to stream longer, but I also have a bunch of responsibilities that I have to take care of. Plus I have to feed the machine. I stopped eating my dinner in order to come hang out with you. But I will be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking about more AI safety, as I indicated, and we're gonna go that route. I think we're gonna raid Carpe Pax. I appreciate you all. If you are gonna bounce out and go to someplace else, then just stick around for the raid and like that. And in the meantime, drink some water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot. Chuggy loves you. So do I.